Welcome back to the channel and welcome back to another edition of the Spurs Chat podcast. Now, what a couple of a difference a couple of day makes. Crystal Palace 0, Tottenham Hotspur 4, Harry Kane with a brace, Matt Doherty on the score sheet, and of course Heung-min Son on the score sheet as well. What a good victory and what a good second half performance from Spurs this evening. I've got three very special guests to talk about tonight's game with me. We've got actor Ricky Norwood back with us. Rick, how are you?
Ah, mate. Tottenham, man. What are they going to do to us? What are they going to do to us? Haven't we already heard that the NHS are under enough pressure without all of us going there with heart palpitations, bruv? Like, what is going on? It's exactly what we need to see in that second half, man. A bit of grit, a bit of fire, a bit of determination, and a bit of character there to kind of show people that slagging them off, or that have, that some of them have been dipping in form and stuff like that, to come back. Do you know what I mean? To show not only us fans and the club and Antonio, but every single other person watching tonight that, we still got a couple of good players in there, and we do have some performances in there. So it's about time, man. A big 4-0 win. Get in. Let's have it.
We've also got channel regular Craig back with us. Craig, how are you this evening?
Much better than I was after the first 45. Yeah, because I thought it was going to go exactly the same way as it has done the last few weeks. But it was, great to see a superb second half performance. Let's face it, and it was quite telling to see how early Conte came out at the beginning of the second half and just sat on the bench, and he was out quite early, I think. So he obviously just tore a strip off him and said, "Right, just you've got to sort this out yourselves. I can't do much more," and they did. To be fair to them, so yeah, very important win, wasn't it?
Very important indeed. We've also got returning guest Cole Jones with us, of course, comedian and host of a new podcast, When Football Began. Cole, how are you?
Like the lads have said, wasn't quite sure what sort of what we were looking at half time as to how the second half was going to go. No one's coming on the show to chat about it. Not too much to report really, but a really good second half and just nice to enjoy watching Tottenham play for 45 minutes, because there doesn't feel like there's been many enjoyable performances just recently, and that second half was back to somewhere close to what we like to see.
Ricky, let's start the show with you. Give me your thoughts on tonight's game, because, of course, you were on the show a couple of days ago when, of course, Aston Villa beat us 2-0 at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. A very, very poor performance. And as Craig and Carl have already said, the first 45 minutes from Spurs weren't great tonight, but that second half performance was exceptional. And that is what it kind of gives me that feeling of like when we used to turn sides over under Mauricio Pochettino, dare I say it.
Yeah, no, I know what feeling you're talking about there, my friend. But like, you know what, for me, and I'm going to paraphrase Souness tonight, but I actually did say it before he said it at half time. But like, to me, the first 10 to 15 minutes, we looked like we was on the ball a bit. We was trying to pass quickly, trying to pass first time. The boys looked like they wanted to give a reaction. But then as soon as Crystal Palace started to come into the game, they started to get their chances. It's like we wilted, and we started going back into our shell again. And that's when I was kind of just huffing and puffing, going, "Oh, please, Tottenham, no, please, Tottenham. Like, don't do it to yourselves." And at half-time, I text my dad, and I was just like, you know what? First 10, 15, they done well, but then they started to get shy and go into their shell. But, they look like they almost started to feel sorry for themselves. And what they need to do is to pull up, to look at themselves in the mirror and start getting mad with themselves of their own performances individually and as a team and as a collective, and kind of go out there and show not only us and everybody watching and the club and everybody else, but they are some players with some cojones, you know what I mean, and that they can go out there and deliver a gritty, tough, performance and kind of show their quality instead of like getting the criticism left, right, and centre. Show their quality. And today's second half performance was electric. It was on fire, and I was so happy and proud to see our boys get out there and kind of, leave everything on the pitch and show us what they were about, and show us their class and their composure and their goals. The fact that Harry got 2, do you know what I mean? He was immense in the second half. He was threading balls through. His head was on the swivel, left, right, and centre. He was determined to get something going. I know we'll break down the goals, but for Sonny to get a goal today, perfect. He had a shot over the bar in the first half into the crowd. And I was just like, no, Sonny, not you. I'll have it from Højbjerg. I'll have it from Skippy. I'll have it from Matt Doherty. I'll have it from a lot of them. Just not you getting it into the crowd like that. So for him to come back and get that scrappy goal as well, fantastic. Hopefully that's the spark that he needs. And it's great to see he smiled back on his face. And to get a contribution from Doherty as well on that right wing back, the troubled right wing back slot, bro, to get some type of attacking play and overlapping and confidence and to get that goal. He was showing for it. He had another one that went over the bar, and you know, he had a couple of like pot shots and things that went a little bit wayward, but for him to get that as well on tonight's performance, fantastic, fan-dabby-dozy, bruv. Like, I can't believe it, because it's exactly what we needed to see from all of those fringe players. For Hill to get the assist today, you know what I mean, and get some more minutes under his belt. Yes, we know his weaknesses, but for him to show some of his strengths today, I'm just super proud and super buzzing to see that from my team, because I didn't know where we was going after Villa.
Bricky, the other day when you were on, we were all quite down, and it was all very negative in all of the comments that were coming in. You know, what we were saying, it just proved, doesn't it? Just, you know, a couple of days later, you can change your mood so quickly. Where do you think Tottenham are in terms of, you know, league position? We're only 3 points away from second place now. Are you confident that Spurs will push for that top 4 spot, even if we didn't sign anyone in the January window?
Firstly, I think all of the points that we was making and after the show were valid points. Yes, they were passionate, and yes, they were emotional responses, because we was on pretty close to after the game finished. But I think there were some valid points there. I still think that you know, every time we get close to building a side and going that extra step, we'll always go and get a cheaper option, or we won't spend at all, or we won't pay that extra $5 million that gets that one player that can solidify the foundations that we have then built up until that point. So I still think that we made some valid points there. Yes, they were passionate, and yes, they were emotional. But I still think that a lot of us made some very valid points. On the rest of the season, this is the kickstart that we needed. I still think that we need a signing or two to inspire, to reward this type of comeback and this type of energy and this type of play that we put in tonight. I still think the board need to go out there and spend some money to build on this progress and to inspire the rest of the season. And if Antonio Conte gets the required players that he needs that are up to his standard, then I think we've got a great opportunity, you know, to go and challenge for that 4th spot, that 3rd spot, and just kind of keep it climbing. But right now, we don't know what side we're going to see. I'm just happy that tonight we saw a performance. Tonight we saw a reaction. Tonight we saw what those boys were about in the second half. So fingers crossed we can keep that going and we can build on that. I don't want to speak too tough right now, because we don't know what's going to happen in the next game. We could play dire straits in the next game against Portsmouth, and then we'll be like, where are we again? Do you know what I mean? So right now, it's all about building on that and pushing that momentum and helping this momentum and this shift in energy. We need to help it. We need to back it. And that crowd tonight, oh my gosh, I heard every song. I heard every chant. I heard you back the boys. Even when we was under the cosh a little bit, those away fans, they were well up for it. And we all know that Palace is a tough crowd to you know, it's a tough place to go, and it's a tough crowd to go up against. But I heard the Tottenham singing throughout that 90 minutes. So big up to everyone that went tonight.
They were fantastic in that way, and they didn't stop singing, as you said, Rick. And you know, very, very passionate, very up for it this evening. Craig, let's get your thoughts on tonight's match.
Yeah, it was funny because after that first half, I was thinking, I'll come on here, and what was ringing through my head was that. You know, the scene at Blackadder when Baldrick's reading a poem to him, and Blackadder says, well, it started off badly, tailed off a bit in the middle, and the less said about the end, the better. But apart from that, excellent. And I genuinely thought that's how it was going to be. Look, to be fair, I thought we started off quite brightly in the first half. But then Palace crept back into it after about 25, 30 minutes. And, it was, you know, they had a few chances. Hugo made a couple of good saves, and I will get into that. But then you know, that second half display was well, you're right. It was like under the Poch days, wasn't it? It was like the handbrake was taken off, and it was like swarming forward, getting more players in the box, people getting in good positions. Bryan Hill was superb in the second half. The ball through to Kane for his goal, which we'll come on to. Yeah, instrumental in the first goal as well. So yeah, and I think he did get a good ovation from the Spurs crowd, and they were singing his name, which it's going to give him confidence, and hopefully he'll get a run out against Portsmouth at the weekend and get a bit more confidence. So fully expect Kulusevski to come back in for the Arsenal game if he's fit. But to have somebody on the bench with confidence that can come on and play like that is going to only be a good thing,
Carl, it's nice to be smiling again, isn't it? Give me your thoughts on tonight's match.
Yeah, I mean that first half we looked like we were a bit more on the front foot than we have been. We looked like we were taking the game to them a little bit more. Obviously, it was so passive against Villa. It was so and in quite a few games where we just seemed to wait for teams to come on to us. So that spell in the sort of last 15 minutes of the first half, I think a stat came up that we'd had no touches in the box. I think that we'd had 2 passes completed in the final third. So when we say we tailed off, we really tailed off in that last 15 minutes. I thought Palace were giving us a lot of problems. They're kind of front 3 or 4. Eze was popping up all over the place, and they were just kind of interchanging with Zaha, Elise, Ayew, and they were switching sides. And bizarrely enough, at half time, I was kind of thinking they're sort of doing what the bit that we don't do, because that kind of fourth player penetrating with the front 3 was Ollie Skip, and that's obviously not going to be his natural position. So this kind of player who can break the lines and stuff that we talk about all the time, that we so desperately need, I was looking at that thinking that's maybe where our lack of creativity is and where Palace were causing us problems. But then coming out in the second half and just seeing how we just set off really, really quickly, and the quality shone through. It felt like some of that confidence was coming back into players. I agree with some of the things that we've already kind of touched upon, where you kind of go, we've got these world-class players. At the end of the match, you see Harry Kane and Heung-min Son stood there in a Spurs shirt being interviewed, and it's easy for us to forget, watching them week in, week out, that these are 2 icons of world football at the moment, and they play for our football club. And here they are, kind of, let's face it, toiling at times, and that Sonny effort that I think you mentioned, Rick, that just went up into the stand. I mean, so because Sonny is one of those players where you think he needs that confidence. So I think for that, it was that sort of. I wouldn't go as far as calling it a complete performance. Palace wilted quite a bit, and they've not been on amazing form themselves, I think, of late. So, let's put that into perspective, that actually this is world beating side. But going into Arsenal and City after the Portsmouth game, we imagine we'll rest some place for Portsmouth. Going into Arsenal and City, after the way we all felt after Villa, tonight would have been a really, really dreadful performance. And every game feels massive, but tonight really, really felt like a very, very important game after the results against Villa and Brentford. So I'm just pleased as well that, as well as getting that bit of momentum back, we've all got a smile on our face. The team have got a smile on their face, and we go into that massive week, the week after next, on some form.
Carl, it's a weird one, because I spoke to a lot of Spurs fans inside Selhurst Park before the game started, and you asked people, are you confident of a win tonight? No one really seemed confident of a win. We all didn't really know what to expect. What did you expect? If I was to ask you to be honest, before the game, if I'd have said to you, what's your score prediction, what would you have said?
Well, I actually tweeted earlier, Chris, coming on this show, that I don't ever recall appearing on this show or any time when I talk about Tottenham being so completely, torn between whether we're going to have a thumping win, a drab draw, or a gut-wrenching defeat, because I think all 3 felt realistic. Normally, you go into a Spurs game going, "Oh, it's going to be a tough one tonight," or "Oh, I really fancy us tonight." Yeah. I felt that all 3 were possible. We all know we've got the quality to put 4 past Palace. We absolutely have. We also know we lost there 3-0 last season, and at half-time you could have said, is there enough quality on this pitch for anyone to score? So that is how I felt before the game. I wouldn't have been confident in, and I'm quite an optimistic Spurs fan. I was convinced we were going to beat Villa by 3 or 4 goals at the weekend. So I wouldn't have felt brave enough to make that kind of decision and that kind of prediction about the Palace game. I didn't know. I think it was just which Tottenham turned up, and I wouldn't have taken many odds on 4-0 at half time either. So let's credit where it's due. They came out and really turned it round from a pretty drab first half.
We've got a comment now from Roy Price. Roy writes, Bryan Hill had his best game, and it was important Heung-min Son got the goal. Our second half play was where our game should be, and hopefully we can now push on. Roy, I promise we will talk about Bryan Hill later on in the show, but thanks so much for your comment. Ricky, let's come to you. Let's talk about Tottenham Hotspur's starting 11. Hugo Lloris in goal. The back three of Romero, Dyer and Langley. The wing backs Doherty and Perisic. In midfield, Skip and Højbjerg. And then the forward three of Bryan Hill, Kane and Son. Subs this evening, Forster, Davis, Tanganga, Sanchez, Sessegnon, Royale, Spence, Sarr and White. A couple of changes from Antonio Conte from the Aston Villa game. Any surprises there for you, or did you expect that?
No real surprises. I was happy to see Skip on. I felt that when Dyer came in, and he's had some shaky performances, and he's made some kind of rash decisions. But the way that he was in there organising, it felt like he had something to prove today. And I felt that he was shouting a lot. I felt that he was organising a lot, and maybe that's what you miss when you play Langley in there with Davies on the side. Maybe we missed that voice in the back line. And then with Skippy, do you know what? Skippy, I thought, again, he started bright in that first half. I felt that he was full of energy. I felt that he was trying to get the ball moving forward. I thought that he was trying to break forward a couple of times, break those lines a couple of times. But then again, as Palace crept into it, it was two halves of the first half. The first half of the first half, he was on it, and it looked like, oh, it's nice to see Skippy in that side. And in the second half of that first half, it just seemed to go past him. People were playing past him. He was grabbing on. He was holding on. He was trying to get silly fouls in. He got that yellow card, and it was just kind of like, we still got a little way to go there with Skippy. But again, I commend him for the energy that he brought in. The biggest surprise to me was that bench. And I know that it's what we've got, but when I looked at it before the game, I just had to shake my head a little bit. I was just like, who can come on and change this? Who can come on and give something? But, big shout out to Sarr, who came on and looked tidy. He looked tall. He looked calm and composed in there. He looked, again, like full of energy. He covered the pitch quite easily, quite quickly, with those long legs of his. So, to kind of see Skippy in there and then to kind of see Sarr in there, it was an opportunity for them to show us what they were about. And I think we did see, what they were about a little bit. It's still early days, of course, for the both of them. But at least we saw that. And then with Bryan Hill kind of getting an extra, another start and extra minutes under his belt. And we know the problems with him. We know he can be pushed off the ball. And that happened against a physical, strong, pacey, young side in Palace. But his tenacity, the fact that he kept going, the fact that he kept chasing, the fact that he was always open, the fact that he didn't shy away from the ball, he wasn't scared of being challenged. All of those things I think are positives. And the more game time he gets and the more steaks he eats, hopefully there's a bigger, stronger player in there. And maybe, like Conte's been saying, maybe one for the future, but maybe one that can help out right now.
Craig, let's come to you on the same question. Obviously, Dyer and Skip came in for Davis and Basuma from the Aston Villa game. Any surprises for you? I felt that Oliver Skip had to start this game with the players that we had left available. There was talk about Sarr possibly starting the game. Was it the right decision?
Yeah, I think it was. And bringing Dyer back in is probably not a popular opinion, but I did think we looked more solid with Dyer at the back. Apparently he does talk and marshal that defence, so I was just a lot more confident with Dyer in. I know he had his slip up against Brentford, not particularly good game, but I genuinely think we missed him against Villa. But he just seemed that I was a bit more confident of the defence as a whole with him in that back line tonight, and he did make a couple of good blocks, especially as one in the second half. Which we'll probably talk about, where Romero he tried to control it, come over his shoulder, totally miscontrolled it, and Dyer was there to block the shot. So I thought he played really well tonight, and he was a big part of it.
I'm sure this one's for you, Craig. Neil Lewis writes here, we need Matt Doherty back at Wolves. Will we let him go?
Yeah, well, if Pedro Porro comes in, then you'd imagine one of them's going to go. But yeah, I mean, if it's don't get my feelings on our right back wing back situation. The only thing tonight that I was a bit disappointed with. I mean, if you're Jed Spence, you must be thinking 4-0 up. Surely I must get a run, and he brings on Emerson Royale, who fell over the ball twice. I don't know if he did much else. So this baffles me. It really does. You give the lad a run. He could have given him 15 minutes tonight, but he didn't for some bizarre reason.
What do you make of that situation, Craig? Because, of course, we were 2-0 down at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium at the weekend. He brought him on in the 88th minute. And as you say, 4-0 up this evening doesn't bring on Jed Spence.
I don't know, but I've always been at the back of my mind where he's always said he's a club signing. Is there this can't be true, can it? That if he brings him on and he has an absolute blinder, then he's got no option but to keep him in the team. And perhaps he doesn't want to if that happens, then he admits that he's been wrong all this time. That's the only thing I can think of. Because, the fans, I would say 95, greater than 95% of the fans want to see him out there and given a run. And I really hope he gets a run against Portsmouth, because that's a perfect game for him. But I just think he'll probably play Emerson Royale and give Doherty a rest and perhaps bring him on for 15 minutes at the end. I don't get it, don't understand it. I think he'd be a perfect fit for that role. And, he could have given him half hour tonight, to be honest with you. I think as soon as we'd scored 2 goals, I think that game was won tonight. So, he's surely not that bad. He's going to give the game away for Tottenham, is he seeing something in training that we're not? That's the only other thing that you can say about it. He's bizarre to me.
Carl, surely Antonio Conte chose the strongest 11 against Crystal Palace this evening.
Well, yeah, certainly the 11 that he felt could go out and win the game. And again, no sort of changes. He is quite stubborn, I think. I think that's his sort of personality that comes across. We've had a few of those in the last few years as well, of kind of selecting their teams, or maybe sometimes making a point with their teams. I mean, on the Jed Spence point, I don't get it. He's not. I mean, he is only about 21, 22, but actually he's got quite a number of professional appearances under his belt. I think he's made over 100 appearances albeit at championship level, played for the England under 21. So this is a player that's not a young kid who we've got to ease in. This is a player that we can throw in. Everything I've seen of Jed Spence, I mean, it's a big comparison, but the kind of what Kyle Walker looked like when he first came to us and was a young player with that kind of explosive pace and getting forward. I think the thing about Jed Spence specifically that I wonder, he'd fallen out with was it Middlesbrough, who was his parent club. Obviously went to Forest. Then when Forest went up, there was that picture of him with the cigar and the kind of the tweet to Warnock. Now that's fine, you know what I mean? You can't necessarily judge his entire character on that, but he does have this kind of thing of, is he a little bit, is he to Conte's taste if he thinks he's the complete article yet, and is he bringing him down, or is he just part of this kind of politics of, club signing and all of that? But from everything I've seen of him, admittedly not all of it in a Spurs shirt, he is better than Emerson Royale. I think he's alongside Matt Doherty, and I'd like to see him get a chance. I think he should be playing against Portsmouth, and he could have come on tonight. I suppose for the rest of the team and the rest of the selection, Skippy coming in. I mean, it's only 18 months before his injuries that Skippy looked like the real deal. He's not got back to that level yet. He's obviously going to be a bit rusty. Hill, I thought Hill, I really felt for him when he came off against Villa, because I didn't think he was having a particularly bad game. He looked really disappointed to be kind of taken off, but he looked really creative. He looked. I think that Hill, hopefully for us, could be that natural Lucas Moura successor of maybe not necessarily a starter, but that impact player with 20 minutes to go, and standing in when we've got injuries. So he's not going to get ahead of Kulusevski, ahead of Richarlison, but promising tonight, and I thought he played really well. So, it was nice to hear the fans singing his name as well, because I think, he's got cult hero written all over him, as he's about 4'6", and he's about 5 stone. So with that long hair and stuff. So I like him. I like the look of him. He looks like a Tottenham player to me.
It was great, actually, at the end, inside Selhurst Park. Spurs fans sung about 3 players, Heung-min Son, Harry Kane and Bryan Hill. And Bryan Hill looked absolutely over the moon. That must give him so much confidence of the fans singing his name. Ricky, let's come to you, because Bryan Hill had our first shot on target after 8 minutes. It was comfortable for the goalkeeper. But what have you made, what did you make of Bryan Hill's performance this evening? Because it's been a long time coming. You know, a lot of pundits, a lot of newspapers, etc., stated that he was like the new Messi. He was like one of these wonder kids. We haven't really seen a lot of him. It's probably the best game he's played in a Spurs shirt this evening.
No, I think it is. And I think that's to do with starting the game against Villa, even and being disappointed when he came off of that field. I think something clicked within him, which was like, well, you know, this is an opportunity right now. There's a gap in the team, and I think he was even more driven. You know, and tonight, because we needed a reaction, for him to come on and just dribble and kind of, he done so many good things. It is easy for him to get pushed off the ball, but he done so many good things, and he really did cause Palace's back line some trouble when he was dinking in left and right. And those Palace back line, they go up against Eze and Zaha and Lloris, who are very good dribblers, and Ayew, they're very good dribblers. So for him to kind of turn them inside out a couple of times, I thought it was a promising sign. It was the best game in the Tottenham shirt for Bryan. And I think that this, if he is going to go on loan again, then this should prompt him going to an English side in the Championship, or, you know, or even like you know, a lower league, a lower Premiership placed league team, and kind of have a second season where he's kind of relied upon if he is going to go out on loan. But I think tonight he showed, when Conte was speaking about him being an intelligent player, we can see that he is intelligent. He knows when to pass. He knows when to cross. His shot today, I think, it was on target, easy save. But I think it was him growing into the game. I think he wanted to show the manager, the club, and the fans that there is something in there. And he could be that type of Messi player. He really could. I'm not going to say he's going to be of Messi level, but you can definitely see that in the way that he dribbles and his low center of gravity. And, you know, if he can toughen up and take the knocks in the Premiership, then we could have a dynamite player on our hands there.
Craig, do you want to add anything about Bryan Hill?
Yeah, I just thought it was a fantastic performance. As Ricky said, it's going to give him massive confidence going into the next few weeks. I wouldn't be surprised if we actually hold on to him now, because it seems like Lucas Moura's injury is going to be, you know, perhaps more longer term. I don't think there's any sign of him coming back anytime soon. So, and you could see where Conte gave him such a big hug when he came off. Very pleased with his performance. So, I mean, he had such a, you know, he had a big hand in the first goal. He had a hand in, obviously, Kane's second. He had a hand in Sonny's goal because he laid it off to Kane. So he was in and around everywhere, and he was kind of at the heart of everything good that we did tonight, I thought. And he what I do like about him, when he loses the ball, he sprints to try and get it back, and that you know, it invigorates the team, or should invigorate the team for other players to do the same thing. He does it every single time. And yeah, he's a bit lightweight, but, you know, when he gets the ball at his feet and he runs at players, when he gets the confidence to do that, that's just going to open up space for other people. And he used the ball well today. Everything he did seemed to more or less come off. So you can't ask for more than that. And, you know, if it hadn't been for Kane getting the 2 goals and having an absolute brilliant leaders display in the second half, I would say he was man of the match, to be honest with you. But obviously Kane edged it for me because of the way he played in that second half. But he was just superb. He was everywhere. I've just got it on Match of the Day in the background. He's a different type of player to other players that we got in the team. And I just think, you know, once he gets a run of games, he's just going to get better and better, I think, personally. And I do hope he doesn't go out on loan, personally. I think there is a place for him in this team, and he's only going to get better, as I say.
That was my next question. Cole, let's come to you on this one. Of course, he went out on loan. He's come back. There's been lots of media reports stating that he might go out on loan in this January transfer window. Surely after tonight's performance, he said to Antonio Conte, this is what I can do. And hopefully he will then stay to then get more minutes under Conte and fight for a place in the team, surely.
Well, I mean, I hope so, because I mean, let's look at the bench at the minute. Okay, we've got Kulu and Richarlison out at the minute, but we haven't got many more options if he does go anywhere. So for that alone, for selfish reasons, I think for the player, he came as this sort of Spanish starlet, and he was kind of breaking into the Spanish national team. He's nearly gone a couple of times. I seem to remember there was a tweet or a message or something of him kind of putting something out of going, sometimes things are not meant to be, or so. I can't quite remember what it was. But I think basically he was on the verge of going somewhere and it fell through. I wonder whether the player has necessarily settled as a human being switching to England, and whether if he's going to go anywhere, I can't necessarily see him fancying a trip to Wolves for 6 months or something like that necessarily. I'm pretty sure he'd probably want to be back in Spain if he's going to go anywhere, and maybe that's the rumours that's where his game's best suited to. But there's clearly a player there, so I hope we keep him. I think he's a very, very, as I say, Lucas Moura's injury troubles and kind of form in the last sort of season or two is coming towards an end, and I think he's out of contract anyway, isn't it, at the end of the season, so he could be going to back to Brazil. So Bryan Hill, for me, I think is that impact player we need on the bench.
Ricky, let's come to you. Adrian writes now, important first half save from Hugo Lloris out of 3 excellent saves that he made. Of course, we mentioned Hugo Lloris at the weekend after his mistake led to the first Villa goal. What did you make of his performance this evening?
Reaction, experience talking, my friend. He heard the critics. He heard Souness say that he was past it. And the best way to shut everybody up is to come out with a performance and to save us again. Not only that the first save that he made, the snapshot off of Ayew, great snapshot save, great, fantastic. And we all know if he would have gone 1-0 down, let's just look at the first half again. Again, for Tottenham, the first half was a game of 2 halves. And as we've said, as soon as Palace started getting into the game, we started to wilt again. If that first goal would have gone in, would we have wilted fully? Like, would we have come back? I know we've had a couple of comebacks. I know we've been a bit of a second half side this season, but would that have happened with all the pressure and all of the negativity and all of the energy that's been going around this side, especially after Brentford, after Villa, and then now against Palace with the big games coming up? What would have happened then? So for Hugo to save us at that point is so important. And then for him to come out with a couple more in the second half as well, I mean, they were fantastic saves. And I think it's a great reaction for him. I think it's a great reaction to kind of say to people like Souness, I ain't past it just yet. I do have some quality in these fingertips. And to kind of reassure all of the fans that he can be trusted when called upon. There wasn't too much for him to do in that second half, but he was still alive and alert. And he got his fingertips to both of those shots. One off of Ayew. I can't remember who the other one was off. But like he was there and he was up for it. And he wanted that clean sheet. He kept shouting at the back line when Emerson came on and when Davies came on and stuff like that. He was shouting at that back line. He wanted to keep that clean sheet. And it, as a sense of pride, I think, and as a sense of kind of, you think I was gone. Well, I ain't gone just yet. Do you know what I mean? And even that confidence for himself to let himself know, there's still some very high quality in these fingertips, and I ain't finished just yet. So I love his response. I love his reaction. Again, he's our club captain. He's the captain. A lot of people will always think that Kane's the captain for Tottenham, but he's not. Kane's the captain for England. Hugo Lloris is the captain of Tottenham, and that was a captain's performance tonight. And I think that gave everybody else confidence to go and play that way in the second half as well, because we knew that Hugo was up for it. We knew that we had some organisation there from Dyer, like Craig was saying earlier, so we could go for it a bit more because the trust and the love for Hugo was there. And everybody, it was a team unit tonight. We will pick out individuals, but it was a team unit tonight that went out there in that second half and said, no, forget this. I'm fed up. Let's just go and show these people what we're about, please. And they went out there and they done it. And I'm so happy for that 4-0. And I'm so happy for that clean sheet for Hugo Lloris.
Were you feeling that confident at half time, Rick?
No, I wasn't. Honestly, like the missus was coming down for a couple of reports, so she came down at about 15. She's like, "All right, babe, so how they started?" So I was like, "Yeah, you know, like I've said to you, they're whipping it about. They seem a bit on it. They seem like they want to have a reaction." She came down at like 35 minutes. She was like, "What's happening?" I said, "Oh, I don't know, babe. I don't know what's gonna happen here. I don't know what's happening." I said, "We fell back." And in the second half, she was upstairs. She's a little bit ill at the moment, so she was upstairs watching a little something on Netflix, and she heard me shouting, and then no, she's got them on repeat anyway, mate. But no, she heard me hollering, and then she was like, you know, so what did you win by? I said 4-0. She's like, 4-0? How did that happen? From the report that I gave her at the end of the first half, to get a 4-0 at the end of it, she was like, you know, like she was just kind of like, how did that happen? But that's Tottenham, and that's why we love them, you know?
Yes, certainly. Craig, let's come to you. Of course, Spurs didn't have many first half opportunities. Harry Kane put header wide after 25 minutes, and then, of course, Ayew had that chance after a good Palace move after 27 minutes, and Hugo Lloris made that good save. 4 minutes later, Joachim Andersen with a great strike just wide. That was one hell of a shot, and we've been linked to Andersen over the years a number of times.
Yeah, mainly by Anthony Costa, but no, I agree with him. I thought you'd have been a great buyer for us, to be honest with you. He was pretty solid when he was at Fulham. I think he would have slotted in, and he's a great player for Spurs, but obviously never really looked at him. But that shot, I honestly thought, you know, it had Hugo worried because he was full stretched together. I don't think he'd have quite got there had it been going in. But yeah, it was a bit of a nervous moment. But just coming back to it, that one with Ayew, I just rewatched it. That the one where he was put through, if he only needed to square it to Elise, and we'd have been 1-0 down. So, you know, it's fine margins, great save from Lloris. But you know, if he'd actually got his head up, it was a 4-yard pass, and so yeah, could have been very different. Because you know, if we'd gone 1-0 down again, my God, you know, that's another important thing about tonight. You know, we didn't go 1-0 down, we didn't concede. Yeah, we didn't do well in the first half, but you know, little steps, we didn't concede, which is, you know, it could be huge. It's games like this that could, I'm just saying, could kickstart your season, because we've had it rough the last few weeks. You know, hangover from the World Cup for Kane, you can see that obviously affected him. He's now back in amongst the goals. He had a smile on his face. Sonny's scoring again. So don't underestimate what this game could do for our season. And hopefully we'll go on Saturday against Portsmouth. Is it Saturday? Yeah, it's Saturday, isn't it? Against Portsmouth, and progress in the FA Cup. Because to me, as I've said on this channel many times, the FA Cup's really important to me. Great memories as a kid, so I think it's something we've got to take seriously. But I don't think Dane Scarlett can play on Saturday. I'm sure. So yeah, that would be typical Spurs to do that, wouldn't it? When your own players come back and score against you. But yeah, coming back to the original point, I think we was unlucky. We was lucky in some degree to not go 1-0 down at that point. And but Anderson, great strike. And to be honest, I'd still probably take him at Spurs. To be fair, or the other centre back they've got, that guy, whatever his name is, Guy. So yeah. The good. To be fair, there's some good players at Palace. I've said Michael Elise. I always like the look of him. I think he's a cracking young player. Surprised we never went for him, but who knows? This might be a player we go for in the future.
I was going to ask that, Craig, because Palace do have a number of great attacking players. Are you surprised that they didn't offer more of a threat this evening?
Well, as I say, I've always rated that Elise. I think he's a great player. Kind of a Spurs player in my eyes, if you like. Eze, we was linked to when he was at QPR.
Yeah.
I thought he would have been perhaps he did need that. You know, it's a bit of a step up to Tottenham. So, but perhaps now they might look at him again. And obviously Zaha, we've been linked with. Never really rated Ayew, but he has done jobs on us in the past. And you know, he's not the worst centre forward in the world. I don't think many Spurs fans would get excited if we signed him. But you know, he does carry an attacking threat. But that three that sit behind, I think that's a really good attacking three there. You know, all big, strong lads, fast, I'm surprised they didn't cause us more trouble, but they all seem to not be off their game tonight, but they didn't kind of gel as I've seen Palace do in the past. And so, yeah, I'm quite surprised it didn't cause us more issues because they've definitely got it in the locker.
Well, of course, it was half-time. It was 0-0. Cole, let's come to you. In the 47th minute, Harry Kane put a great ball through to Matt Doherty, who shot wide. Surely he's got to be hitting the target there, hasn't he? I tell you, I won't even repeat what the person said next to me about Matt Doherty at that point.
I mean, he scored in those mid-season friendlies, didn't he? And he got that bit. There was a couple of interviews, I think, on the Spurs channels around, like how he taken his goal scoring form, and he's looked confident, and he kind of, I think it all just the blood rushed to his head, and he puts it up into the crowd. I think it was, and obviously we'll come on to the Kane goal in a minute, but actually it was like a reflection. But the ball went out the opposite way, and actually, Perisic in maybe a little bit further out, but put that great cross in, and actually for me that still kind of flagged that kind of quality, because I know that Doherty he's split the fan base, and he can put in great performances, and he can put in some pretty terrible ones, but I still I don't think he's of the quality that we need as a first team starting player to be contenders, and to be honest, I think he's one of those ones that's borderline even for a squad player. Having said that, he did have a decent game tonight, but that was an opportunity where you went just square it, just put it into the danger zone, and I think he must have captained himself on fantasy football, because he just saw it and thought, right, this is my moment, and that was not the case.
Well, it is a standard question on this show, Carl. Who is the best right wing back at Tottenham?
I mean, I still think it's Jed Spence, but I always sort of say that one of the things that's happened to us, and I know this isn't necessarily an original thought, is that when we lost Kyle Walker, we took a slight step down in Kieran Trippier, a further slight step down in Serge Aurier, and a further step down for me with Doherty and Royale. So I still, if I was picking the Tottenham team tomorrow for the North London derby, I'd be chucking Jed Spence in there, but Doherty for me is ahead of Royale. So whatever's going on with Spence at the moment, he's our first choice right back, and I think we could do worse.
Craig, I won't come to you on that. I know your favourite is Emerson. Ricky, who's yours? Actually, let's not even go there with the right wing backs. Doherty's talked about. We'll talk about. Let's be positive this evening. Rick, let's come to you. 48th minute, Harry Kane header. What a fantastic cross! What a fantastic finish from him, and I absolutely love it. In the Spurs away end, the whole of the away end said, "We've gone 1-0 up. We've gone 1-0 up. How shit must you be? We've gone 1-0 up." We're just not used to it. We're not used to going 1-0 up this season.
No, we're not. But look at that cross from Perisic. I mean, the quality that guy brings. He's of course, there's been some iffy bits and pieces here and there. There's been some, but you know what? When that guy is on it, he is all over it, and it was such a beautiful, dinky little cross. As soon as you saw that Harry was rushing in there on the back post, he knew where he would be. And he placed it perfectly on his on that big forehead of his. Do you know what I mean? And we went 1-0 up, mate. We went 1-0 up for the first time in ages. So I'm so happy to hear that chant, bro. Let's hear it a bit more often. Do you know what I mean? Let's hear it a bit more often. And that's what Carl was saying earlier about Palace. It was Craig that saying it wasn't gelling and stuff like that, and they're in a bit of a precarious position themselves. But so were we. We was in a precarious position. Thomas Frank said it. Brentford's manager said it. If we go at them from the beginning, we know they start slow. So if we go at them from the beginning and put a goal in, then we know that they almost retreat. And I'm paraphrasing again, but so that's a trait. That's a trait, and so we was there for the taking as well. So it was a really tough game. Palace are full of youth. Energy, speed, dribbling. They are dangerous. They do cause problems. Zaha could have got the way that he dribbles and the way that a lot of them dribble. If they got challenged within the box and they were looking for the pen, But they, we could have easily given away a pen today or something, or something along those lines, some silly foul to kind of allow them back into the game. But we didn't, mate. We went 1-0 up with a beautiful Perisic cross, and Mr. Harry Kane putting his forehead on it, and being the leader that he is. It's good to see him spring to life again, and I hope that he's like that for the rest of the season.
Well, you'll like this one, Rick, because when we went 2-0 up, the fans sung, "How shit must you be? We've gone 2-0 up."
Craig, I love the fans, man. Glad to.
Craig, let's come to you on the 53rd minute. Bryan Hill played a great ball to Harry Kane. I tell you what, that was one hell of an assist from him, wasn't it?
Yeah, as I said before, brilliant pass in between two Palace defenders. And the first touch by Kane is the most important one because he just gets it out of his feet and in one motion swivels and hits it. And as they said on Sky, didn't even look up once. He knew exactly where on the pitch he was, and he knew where that far post was. And how many times have we seen him do it? And I think they just showed a graphic. 300th Premiership game tonight for Kane. Yeah. And when Shearer was at 300, he was on 196 goals, and Kane's on 198. So he's 2 ahead. Incredible, actually. I don't know what age Shearer was at, but Kane's got, for me, if he stays, God hope he stays at Tottenham, he's got, because he's never relied on his pace. If he stays injury free, he's got perhaps 6 seasons left. So you think 10 goals a season, that's easily achievable, and the rest of this season. So, phenomenal player. I think we take him for granted sometimes, and when he doesn't put in his 8 out of 10 performance every week, we get a bit disillusioned. And I think, we'll look back in years to come. In 10 years, we'll look back on Harry Kane and appreciate just how good he really was, because it's easy to be, when he's not performing to his best, it's easy to think that, perhaps he's not as good as, we think he is. But time and time again, he proves people wrong. All those people that said he was a one-season wonder, how wrong are they? So we need to keep that man at the club. We need to tie him down to a new contract. To do that, we need to back Conte. That will make Kane stay, and everything should fall into place in theory. But, how many times have we been over and over that? And I'm sure we'll discuss it later again. But there's so many things that could go wrong, but there's so many easy things for me they could sort so quickly and easily. And for me, it shouldn't be that difficult. You've got the world-class manager in Conte. You make him happy. How many times have we said it? You get the players in to support Kane, the players that Kane wants to play with. It will keep him at the club and it will keep him happy. And he's always said that. If he sees the ambition from the club, he's happy to stay. And that performance tonight in the second half, the short, hopefully, I can't believe, I've been a Spurs fan too long and seen the way, the bald act sometimes, but surely they can see that tonight. A happy Harry Kane is a good Harry Kane and only good for Tottenham.
Well, I'll tell you what, the fans sung non-stop about Antonio Conte. The fans also sung about the bald, in particular Daniel Levy tonight. What Daniel Levy must have felt like today being in Selhurst Park, hearing that constantly and hearing the Spurs fans singing about Antonio Conte. I think it says a lot that we all want him backed in this January transfer window and, of course, going forward. And we want him to remain our manager, the majority of us. Carl, just want to talk about Harry Kane a little bit more, because just want your opinion. Is he the best striker that you have ever seen in your lifetime? Because, of course, he is just about to break Tottenham's all-time scoring record. He's only a couple away now from Jimmy Greaves. He's also about to break the England record as well. The best you've ever seen?
He is the best I've seen live in a Spurs shirt. Obviously, the likes of Jimmy Greaves and Glenn Hoddle, these wonderful players that I've watched on video. He's right up there in that conversation with those players. I still remember about 7-8 years ago, probably, just seeing the way that Kane was developing, how he spread the ball about, how he just sort of played. And I remember I turned to my dad and said, He could be as good as Bale one day, almost like because Bale, it wasn't long after Bale obviously had left that he sort of broke through, and I just remember it was almost felt a ludicrous thing to say, because he was this kind of fringe player from the youth team that hadn't really kind of made much of an impact and didn't maybe look quite up to it. I absolutely love the guy. I think he's an ambassador. I think on and off the pitch, he's just an absolutely wonderful player. I don't understand the stick he gets from other fans, but I think it's largely out of jealousy and things like that. So, yeah, 100%, he is the best striker, the best player I've ever seen in a Tottenham shirt. I'd probably chuck Ginola in there as well. And I love him. And I think, tonight... And actually, really, when you look at kind of Villa and I suppose thinking back to Brentford too, the one thing that's been quite different post-World Cup is that he's staying quite high up. He's not dropping into that kind of... it's not even number 10 position half the time. He's almost dropping back into midfield and spreading the ball out. Now... everyone's raving about Haaland, this kind of this like he's some kind of mutated gene that someone's discovered, and all of a sudden that some impacts that from Roy Keane on his dad, and all of a sudden he's created this kind of monster that basically is just scoring goals for fun. He doesn't have many touches in a game. He gets on the end of things and scores incredible not incredible goals. He scores quite simple looking goals. Harry Kane tonight didn't have much of the ball, didn't have many touches in that first half. He wasn't massively involved. He was barely involved at all against Villa. And then you just see that little ball from Bryan Hill, the way he takes it, just short, sharp snap into the bottom corner. Okay, the first goal, far post, he's risking getting an absolute clatter in there, but he's brave and he puts his head on it and he puts it away, and that's 2 goals. And then actually you start to see him come into the game a little bit more, a few balls over for Sonny. So what can you say about Harry Kane? We've got to keep him. We've got to get him on that new contract. The only way we can do that is by backing Conte and having a long-term vision for this football club, which we've been saying this year after year after year after year, and we always just seem to do not even just enough sometimes, but we do just enough, and we haven't backed managers. And I know there's 1 or 2 people sort of saying this as well tonight in the comments of sort of like, let's not be short-sighted, let's not, the dopamine's kicking in from a result like this. My opinion on Enick and Levy is that
I tell you what, Cole, we'll come on to this in a short bit. Rick, let's come to you because we want to talk about Antonio Conte's comments and the transfer window and about the board. So we'll come on to that shortly. So sorry to interrupt there. Ricky, let's come to you. 66th minute, Pape Matar coming on, Skip going off. I felt personally that Sarr done extremely well and took his opportunity. I always say that when players are given opportunities, it is all about grabbing them. Lots of reports out, very similar to Bryan Hill, about him possibly going out in the January window on loan. Would you like to see him stay now for the rest of the season?
From what we saw tonight, the biggest thing that I can say is that he didn't come on and panic. He didn't look like a young player that was, thrust into the spotlight, and now he's got to perform, and now he's trying to overplay. He was calm, he was assured, he was compact, he was composed. There were so many things about his play that I really did appreciate. And right now, if the midfield is what it is, and we're not going to bring anybody else in to the midfield area, then I would say, why not? Why not keep him around? Why not keep him as like maybe the 5th midfielder there or along those ways? Do you know what I mean? But again, even if he does go out on loan, let's hope it's to an English side in either the Premiership or the Championship, so he can kind of build up that strength and build up that knowledge, especially under a good coach. If he does go on loan, then let's hope that he does develop for the Premiership the time that he does come back from a loan, if he does. But yeah, I'd be happy to kind of keep him around the squad because he looked like somebody you could trust. He's been to the World Cup. He played in a relegation side last year on loan where he was relied upon. Every time that who did he play for? Rennes, I think it was. Was it Rennes? I can't remember.
Metz.
Metz. Well done. But you know, Metz are in. You know, they was in dire straits a lot of the time, and they would bring him on to try and change the game or try and solidify the game. So he's been relied upon. He's been in tough situations before, and I think he's just been waiting for his chance. And I'm so happy that he got it, and I'm so happy that he took it. Let's hope again, like the boys have been saying there, that come Portsmouth, he gets a start there. Do you know what I mean? I wouldn't be upset if Skippy and Sarr started that game. You know, just to kind of give him a run out, give him some more minutes under their belt, let them get a rhythm, let them be relied upon, and let's see what comes out. But yeah, I was really impressed by Sarr today, and I was impressed by when he came on in the World Cup, the touches, and the fact that he wasn't overawed there, and he wasn't overawed tonight. And I'm just happy that he did kind of put a stamp on what type of player that he is and what he could become in the future.
Craig, let's come to you. Let's talk a little bit about Heung-min Son, because, of course, in Antonio Conte's press conference, he said, if we doubt Heung-min Son, we're in trouble. We trust him 100%. He scored Tottenham's 4th goal this evening. I know we haven't spoke about the 3rd goal yet, but in the 67th minute, Heung-min Son threw on goal. It ended up being offside, but at the time, he didn't know that. The goalkeeper saved. He looked very, very disappointed. What did you make of Heung-min Son this evening?
Well, he kept going, that's all you can do as a striker. Is short on confidence and short on goals. He kept going and got his reward in the end. That one you're talking about, where he went through, obviously you're willing him to score to get the team a goal, but you know, for Sonny himself and get that confidence. And you could see in his face, he's like, oh God, you know, missed another one, sort of thing. Because a confident Heung-min Son would have buried that. All right, would have been offside, but he would have buried it. And confidence is such a funny thing, especially with strikers. You get one, it goes in off your bum or something like that, and all of a sudden you're firing again, and that confidence is up. And shortly after he scored, you know, he went on a run. It was just a bit more driving and a bit more. I think he was brought down, actually. He went past 2 or 3 players, and you could almost see instantly that confidence was back. So, you know, he had a huge smile on his face that we're all, you know, used to seeing, and he's played without that the last few weeks. So, you know, he's had a tough time of it. He wasn't playing particularly well before he got the eye socket injury. Obviously battled to get to play with his country in the World Cup. Didn't have a brilliant World Cup. So that, you know, he would have been disappointed with that. And then obviously coming back and not putting in his best displays for Tottenham. So, you know, he's had a difficult few months. And to see him get that goal again, like Kane, it can only be a good thing. That confidence, breeds confidence, not throughout just the player, but the team as well. Clean sheet's a massive thing as well, you know. So it's all, for once, over the last few weeks, there's kind of chinks of sunshine coming through the clouds, which I think it's been very overcast over the last few weeks at Tottenham. So it's really, really nice to talk about a really good victory.
It was so nice, actually, in the away end, because all the Spurs fans singing about Heung-min Son, and as walking off the pitch, he just kept turning round, clapping and waving. It was such a great moment for him. Carl, what have you made of Heung-min Son's season so far? Because, of course, scored all those goals last season. You know, top goal scorer, absolutely fantastic performances. This season hasn't quite worked out for him. What have you made of his season so far?
Well, as the lads have said around confidence, he is a confidence player. He is one of those players where when he goes a few games without a goal, you know, I mean, I must admit, in that first half when he kind of ballooned that one over, there wasn't much to, not that you'd replace him that early, but there wasn't much to replace him on the bench tonight. And I was beginning to think he almost needs that little bit of a stint where he needs a little bit of a rest. He needs to come back in, and then like when we saw him come off when he did break his first duck this season and kind of and scored. Was it in the Champions League? I can't remember which game it was now. But so though that, I think he just needs confidence. He needs now he's got that goal, I think we'll begin to see the player again. It's a nasty injury that he's had. It looked fairly innocuous at the time, but it is a nasty injury he's had, and even just playing with that mask on and stuff like that, and whether his confidence has been knocked a little bit from that, who knows? But I think tonight was the beginnings, because obviously he blazed one over. I think he got put through by Kane, didn't he? But it was offside, but he kind of missed that one as well, although it was on target. And then obviously with the finish, if the close with the finish shows it does take a slight deflection. It looked like it was on target anyway, but it does take a slight deflection. Who knows? It's maybe that bit of luck that he needed. So hopefully tonight's the start of getting that player back, because we need him. There's no return date for Richarlison yet. We don't have Kulusevski. It feels like Kulusevski's injuries just kind of are a bit niggly, and he kind of just, we might be back, or we're not going to risk him. Hopefully he's back for Arsenal. We need a fit and firing Heung-min Son for the second half of this season.
Yeah, I don't think we should all be getting carried away, even though we won 4-0 tonight, having got Arsenal and Manchester City up next in the Premier League. Ricky, do you want to talk us through the third and fourth goals? Of course, Matt Doherty and Heung-min Son, and as Cole said there, it's just so nice for Heung-min Son to get on the score sheet. It must do him the world of confidence today, and as we've seen this evening, put a huge smile on his face.
Yeah, I mean, on Sonny, after the game that he had, it was a bit reflective of the season. He got into some good positions, shot over or shot wide. There's been a couple of dribbles that the ball doesn't seem to stick to his foot anymore. It seems very bouncy and very bitty, and allows the opposition to nick it off of him and counter press us then, and then we're on the back foot again. And you saw him take off the mask against Aston Villa and be that frustrated as well. So for him to kind of get even the pass for Kane against Aston Villa, the one where he just overshot it just slightly, and Kane's like, Sonny, come on, man. That's a simple thing that they would have down. We saw what they done last season, and we've seen what they've done season in, season out, them two as a partnership. So they do know each other's game. So even that pass against Villa, where, Harry was just in front of him, and all he had to do is kind of cushion it to him, but he just overshot it. That look back from Kane is like, what's going on, bruv? What's happening here? So for him to have that bitty game again, soon as that ball went up in the air, from Harry Kane, and he just gave the defender a little nudge just to get a little something on that ball, brought it down, and then, managed to kind of trickle it in there. It was a half shot, wasn't it? It was a snapshot almost. But I think it's going to do the world of good for him, especially after that type of game. But like Craig was saying, all he kept doing was kept going, head back up, kept going. So I think with not only was the preseason in South Korea amongst that type of fan base, right, where the country depend on you. Do you know what I mean? Like he is the nation star, and it was a grueling preseason. Then the grueling Premiership, where it was like every 2 days we're getting a game, every 2 days, and he wasn't finding it. And then the injury, and then that emotion of, am I going to make the World Cup? I know my country relies on me. Then he goes to the World Cup, and his country is relying on him, and he's not really the Sonny that we all know and love. He's wearing a mask. He didn't. There was a couple of moves in the World Cup where naturally we would have thought that Sonny would have buried it or would have made something happen, but he just wasn't at the height that he was. So coming back with all of those disappointments, the emotions, he's an emotional player as well. You see it how many times that he'll have a cry or he'll have a big beaming smile in his face. So he's a person that is emotional as well. So he's had all of that pressure, all of this one. He knows, he loves the Tottenham fans. He loves Tottenham, and he loves the Tottenham fans because we love him. We know what he's about, and we've backed him through barren spells before. And so for him to score that goal and to get that ovation and to get those songs tonight, and for him to keep turning around and clapping to the crowd, that means so much to Sonny. And I just hope that he bottles it up and kind of, it reinvigorates his heart and his soul and his emotions and all of that pressure that he's had on his head and his shoulders for so long. I hope that really does reinvigorate him and just go, all right, cool. I love the Lily Whites. Let me go and be the Sonny that you know and love, and let me kick on from here. And then for Doherty as well, the Doherty goal, again, it was where Sonny he done a dribble, and normally he would take it past the goalkeeper, or he would be able to find something to do. But I felt that almost he dribbled it out of play. He didn't, but it was going that way. And then he tried to square it across for Harry Kane again to get his hat trick, but the deflection came off of a Palace player. But the whole time Doherty was calling for it. The whole time he ran up there to support. And he was in the box, and he was in space, and he was calling for it. And it just so happens that the deflection falls to his foot, and he puts in the third or fourth goal. I can't remember which one it was now. But so again, that's great to see a performance from Doherty where we've seen him kind of track back, we've seen him push up, we've seen him be a little bit brave, we've seen him overlap. We've seen him cross a bit. We've seen him shoot a bit wayward. It wasn't like 100%. It was not like I think he's the answer. But to see a performance from him and a reaction from him wearing a Spurs shirt when we needed it most, it was fantastic. It was fantastic to see. I was going to swear then. But it was fantastic. It was fantastic to see. So, he's not the answer, I don't think. But, to see that performance, see that reaction, if that's what's coming next week and the week after and the week after that, then more power to him, because I don't want to sit here, and I know none of us want to sit here and slag off any Tottenham player. I want him to do well. I want him to, to be the player that we all thought that they were going to be when they turn up. But we just know as Spurs fans that sometimes it just doesn't work in a Spurs shirt. Doesn't matter how great their highlight reel is on YouTube. Sometimes it just doesn't work in a Spurs shirt, i.e. Ndombele and Lo Celso and. So we have had a history of it. But this is why, again, it's so important to get the ones, instead of spending on two cheap players, put that money together and get the one player that Conte wants in that position, and we could be a dynamite side. We could be flying with a proper right wing back, as we've said for the last, I don't know how many seasons now. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, we do certainly have that conversation a lot. Well, late on, Emerson Royale came on for Matt Doherty. Sessegnon came on for Bryan Hill. 10 minutes from time, Hugo Lloris made another good save from a long-range effort. And then 4 minutes from time, Davis and White coming on for Perisic and Lenglet. Craig, let's come to you. Let's talk about David's comment here. Backing a manager means trusting his judgment on players he wants and those he wants out and accommodating him, not buying cheapest options. Now, of course, the January transfer window is a couple of days old. What do you expect Spurs to do in this January transfer window? Do you think that Antonio Conte will be backed? And what have you made of Antonio Conte's comments in the press conferences in the last couple of days? I know there's a lot of questions there. I know there's a lot to cover. But I've got to say, me personally, every time I hear Antonio Conte in a press conference, it just makes me feel more worried as a Spurs fan. Does it do the same to you?
No, it does, absolutely. Just cover that one off first. There has been so many questions directed to him, and it must get him down a bit, because he does answer the question and somebody else asks him the next week. But the thing is, until he commits to the club, he's going to get those questions. Until he gives a straight answer, he's going to get those questions. Now, what is he going to say? If his thoughts are, okay, I'm going to be off in the summer, he's certainly not going to say that. If he's still on the fence, if he's waiting to see if the board back him and get him the players that he wants, then it don't take a rocket scientist to work out he's more likely to sign a new contract if he feels like he's being backed and getting the players in. Because the one thing he's been consistently said, and he is quite open in his press conferences, is I'm paraphrasing, but I want the players in that I want to do the job, to make the club better, to make the team better, to make the squad better, to allow us a better chance of winning trophies. So he has said that. The thing for me is, with Spurs, really thinking back on the last few summer transfer windows, the club has spent a hell of a lot of money. Now, if you look at the likes of the window where we got Lo Celso and Ndombele, at the time we was all quite excited about it, but there are two signings that clearly didn't work, but they spent a hell of a lot of money on them. The summer after that, it was the summer we got Jack Clark, didn't work. Joe Hart, didn't work. Bale did work, but wasn't played enough. Reguilon, we all thought it worked, but clearly went off the boil. There was a couple of other players you could throw into that. So they've spent money. They've spent a lot of money, but not always, the recruitment hasn't perhaps been as good as it should be. And even last summer, was the recruitment good enough? We was all quite excited after transfer window, but kind of because we signed 5 or 6 players so early, we was expecting a deadline day signing that never came, like a big name. And I think we spoke, Chris, we both felt we was one short, that big 2. Yeah, you could throw 2 in there, definitely. But, and again, it's like we said earlier, I can't remember who said it, we've just done enough a lot of the time. We don't go that extra mile. If I still maintain, I've said it on here loads of times, that season with Poch, if we'd bought a couple of players in that window when Dembele left, or it might have been the one before that, we would have won the league that season. It was the season before, actually, but we would have won the league because we was 2 players short and they didn't invest and they didn't get the right players in. And for me, it's, what is it, a sign of madness? Is it, they say, when you keep doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result? And that is Tottenham to a T. So Daniel Levy surely must be looking at it, and Donna Cullen and the board must be looking at it and saying, look, we've got to support this man, because what sort of business model have you got, and what sort of business are you running if you're not doing that? Because every single Spurs fan can see it, but the board don't. Now, you're not telling me we haven't got the money. We are the richest club, I believe, in the Premier League for FIFA fair play rules, because we've got the most money to spend, is what I'm saying. That stadium is generating hundreds of thousands of pounds. If you want to be a big club, you've got to act like a big club, and now is the time. Because I'll tell you, if Conte walks, that board, their situation is untenable for me.
Craig, they can't. The board can't be very happy, can they, at the moment, with what Antonio Conte is coming out with in the press conferences? Surely.
Oh, probably not, because the truth hurts, doesn't it? That's the bottom line. If you're his employer, like if you're Daniel Levy sitting there and he's thinking, "Oh Christ, what is he going to say now?" I get it, but Levy can do something about that. The solution is there for all to see. What's David put there? Trouble is, Craig, only a manager knows the players he wants and needs to balance his team. Levy buys cheap options. Absolutely, yeah. Time and time again, it's what I said. We always go for the cheap option. We always try and get out of jail the cheapest way. And it's the Spence deal for me is the one, because that Spence deal should have been over the line weeks before it was, right?
But it's not a player.
That was a Levy. He was doing the negotiations, from what we're told, whereas Fabio Paratici was doing the other ones. Got them over the line, got them done like that, didn't he? He had 4 or 5 signings in June. We're all getting excited. And then the Spence one, we think, get him on the plane to Korea. And of course, it dragged on and on and on and on. But, haggling over a couple of million. All right, a million's £1 million. But, let's face it, come on. If the lad's that good, you just pay what they wanted. So you can't keep going round and round in circles, and we have chats on here and we talk about the same thing over and over and over again. And I would love a board. Like, I'm not saying I want us to be taken over by the Saudis like Newcastle or saying anything like that, but I'm saying somebody, if ENIC don't act now, then, as I say, the position's untenable for me, and it's perhaps time for them to look at selling up and going and giving somebody else a go.
Just very quickly, Craig, do you think Conte will be backed in the way that you want him to in the January window? Yes or no?
I've been a Spurs fan and seen the way other managers haven't been back for too long. So I'm not being pessimistic. I think we will sign players, but I'm not convinced on history, not even recent history, on history, that he's going to be back fully. I'll be amazed. Come the end of the window, I'll come in here and say I was wrong, but I just can't see it. We will get players in, whether they'll be the players he wants, whether we'll ever know that they're the players he wants. Is he likely to come out and say, well, we got 2 or 3 in, but they weren't the players I wanted? He's not going to say that. So perhaps we'll never know until the day goes, but I just can't see it. I'd love to be wrong there.
Cole, sorry, I interrupted you on this subject. I know you've got a lot to say on this subject. Same questions to you. How do you see this panning out?
Well, I got on my soapbox a bit early, didn't I? I think for me, I suppose to give context to kind of where I think it's going to go, I understand why people want ENIC out, why people want Levy out. I think everything that's been said about there's 3 or 4 moments going back to 2010, 2016-17, 2018 after the World Cup, and pretty much, now, where there are moments where we go, we've got the opportunity to step up and back a manager, and it has gone on for so long now, without trophies. The one thing I will say, and I'm not defending ENIC and Levy, but we also could be Everton. When you look at when people talk about the amount of trophies in 20 years and so on since they took over, they took us over at a time when we'd stagnated in the most important decade of our entire history. When the Premier League came in under the sugar years, we saw what happened with our neighbours down the road. They became a big force, and that kind of took them on to building a new stadium. We also could be Everton, who've never been anywhere near the Champions League, who've been in relegation battles season in, season out. Similar history to us in terms of a prestigious club with a big fan base and so on. So I think that we always have to balance that. When we say, we're nowhere near City, we're nowhere near Man United, we're nowhere near with these teams, we are also leagues ahead of Everton, both as a football club on the pitch and off the pitch. So then it's pointed at Levy to say he runs us as a business. Yes, he does run us as a business, and whether we like it or not, football is a business. It's a massive, massive business, and it has to be run in a way that is sustainable. Having said all of that, there are times when this football club has not shown the ambition that we all want to see as fans, that we all paying through the nose to go and watch this club year in, year out. The disappointments we've had, the times when we've stuck a reserve goalkeeper in an FA Cup semi-final, the kind of things where you just go, we're playing Portsmouth at the weekend, who knocked us out of our best opportunity to win a cup in that entire thing. They're currently mid-table in League One, so that's what's happened to them in the intervening years, whereas we are a massive football club. We need to invest and bring in these players. I can't see, it's always like, what could be the next step? We had the best manager, I believe, in my Spurs supporting lifetime, in Pochettino, and we did not back him. We had a pound for pound one of the best starting 11s in world football at that time, and we had nothing on the bench. We never backed him to add that quality that we needed to take us on to the next step. He walked away. He just looked exhausted. Mourinho eventually looked exhausted. He probably wasn't the right fit. Nuno was a yes man. Conte came in, this passionate guy, this winner, and you start to see some of that body language creeping in, as if to go, I get it now. This is why this club hasn't won anything. This is what I'm up against, So, and I was, weirdly enough, I was thinking about this of, if you, on a very different scale, when Leeds were in the Championship, the amount of managers that were tempted to Leeds because they thought they'd be the one that would take Leeds back to the Premier League, be this big job and be this hero. And I think we're the Premier League version of that. I think lots of managers look and go, well, look at the players they've got. Look at the stadium they've got. Look at all this stuff. I'll be the man to protect. And my worry was, before tonight, you were looking at Conte going, oh no, I can't do this. Actually, this is impossible. So all of that, what does that mean for this month? They have to be backed. And if not, Levy, I think Levy, we get used to this PR kind of thing at the end of a season that have got further and further away from reality in recent years, about like a manager who plays the club style and stuff. We need to hear what their plan is for our football club for the next 5-10 years. There was the European Super League stuff, that all got swept under the carpet very quickly, not by the supporters trust and so on, but it's all disappeared. They have to understand how we feel as a fan base. We need to win. I don't think our current mood's helped by who's top of the league, and I think they've been through a similar phase when we were looking okay. But we have to spend 300-400 million over the next 2 to 3 transfer windows, not over the next 2 to 3 years, over the next 2 to 3 transfer windows to become competitors. Because if not, they need, I think, now to step aside and allow someone to come in who's going to invest that into the football club, because everything else, every single thing is in place, and we've got to thank Ennick for a lot of that. But if they are not going to push us on to the next stage to mean that we can compete on the football pitch, there was no point in any of it. So I'm ready now to either see them invest or sell up. They are the only two options. We can't keep having this conversation year in, year out.
Is it realistic, though, Cole, a change in ownership at the club?
I think there's enough. Tottenham Hotspur Football Club, I suppose the thing you've got to do is go and negotiate with them for how much they want for it. So we know that negotiating with them isn't necessarily the best thing. So whether there's been inquiries and people have been scared off by the price. I mean, we still don't have a stadium sponsor, do we? You know, let's face it. However much we want for the stadium sponsorship, that was supposed to be the next big thing of hundreds of millions of pounds a year and stuff. So there must be people out there who would snap your hands off a Tottenham Hotspur Football Club, and the potential is there for us to be a major force in world football for decades to come. And that might sound unrealistic to some people, and some people might say that's just. But we've got one of the best stadiums in the world. We've got iconic players. We are year in, year out in the top sort of 10, 12 income. We've got every reason to be one of the top football clubs in the world. And let's face it, we're kidding ourselves if we think we are at the moment. So someone needs to take us on to that next step. And if any can't do that, I would thank them for where they've taken us, because we could be Everton. We could be fighting relegation year in, year out. And we're not. We don't have to worry about that. Our frustration is that we're not up there with the Cities and the Uniteds and, unfortunately, this season, the Arsenals. So I would thank them for giving us that platform and that foundation to compete at that level. But if they're not going to be the ones that are going to push us onto that level, we can't and don't want to be the team that just is happy to finish fourth and not win a cup for 20 years. So, yeah, that is where I'm at the moment with it. I just think we need to hear from the board. We need to hear from Levy. He can't bury his head and sit in the stand, which is not a pleasant experience as a human being, let's face it. I do believe he wants what's best for Tottenham Hotspur Football Club. I think that he is driven by the spreadsheets and balancing the books. I think he has limitations on what money's available that can be invested above him. Let's face it, it's not his money he's spending. So, you know, I do think that he will always run the football club in the way he thinks is best. And of course, as fans, we want to throw money around at transfer windows, and you can't do that. But as the lads have already said, we're back now with full stadiums. We're back now with concerts and NFL, and I know some people think we're a theme park for all of that, but these are foundational things that will bring investment to our football club for the next 50 years. And we all miss the lane, but my son will be taking his grandkids to Tottenham in that stadium in 50 years' time. We couldn't have done that at White Hart Lane. So all of these things have set this football club up for the next 50 years, 100 years. So we're a fantastic investment for somebody. And God knows when that first trophy comes, or when we do win that league title again, I pray I'm around to see it, that we basically just at what will we be like as a fan base, it will be absolutely amazing. But I can't see how that's happening at the moment under the current ownership. So yeah, I'd say thank you, but it's time to sell up if you're not going to be the ones to invest.
Carl, wouldn't you say because for me, how refreshing wouldn't it be and how easy would this be for Levy to come out and put a video out on the website, on YouTube or whatever, and just turn around and say, I hear what all the fans are saying. I can categorically come out and say we will be backing this manager because we want to compete for league titles, not just the top four. That's all he would need to say. And then obviously he'd need to follow through on it, or else he'd look like an idiot. So if it was me and I was a billionaire owner, I would be doing that quite regularly and saying, look, I'm going to be back in the match. We're going to be trying to get him the best players and get the best players into this club. For me, perhaps I'm looking at it too simply, but for me, that's the way to behave personally, and not sit there quietly. I know he's not that type of guy, but you know, he's the chairman. He needs to be, and as he said many times, they're just the custodians of this club. Well, start acting like it actually means something to you. 100% agree with you about the stadium. It's his legacy. I think he's done, and Enoch has done, especially Daniel Levy's done a fantastic job with that stadium, the training ground, everything, as you said. Everything is there except the one thing. Everything is right except the one thing that needs to be right.
Ricky, where do you stand on it? Because I've got to admit, when Maurizio Pochettino was sacked, I was absolutely gutted at the time. But when Jose Mourinho came in, I was extremely excited. The reason why I was excited is that Jose Mourinho won trophies at every single club where he has managed. Now, it's just turned out that way. You know, a few people joked about it. Spurs will be the only club where Jose Mourinho don't win a trophy. Of course, that happened. Then, of course, Nuno, we won't even go there. But when you appoint a world-class manager in his prime, Antonio Conte, surely this has to be different. Surely this has to be different at this time of backing a manager. You know, forget what's in the past. You have to do it. You know, now we're in a fantastic stadium. You know, we all go on about our stadium, training facilities. We've got the likes of Harry Kane, Heung-min Son, etc. But I tell you what, I'll be completely honest. Last night, when the press conferences come out, the embargoed section, and listening to Antonio Conte saying the ambition is to, you know, compete for a Premier League and a Champions League, but it isn't his task at Tottenham Hotspur. He is just here to put us back in the right direction. I must admit, I watched that press conference back 3 times. And every single time I listened to Antonio Conte, I was very worried about him, number one, walking away, and 2, the club not backing him. It's like he's been told that that's not going to happen what he wants. What's your take on it? Because I just feel like it has to be now. You know, when you've got a world-class manager, we have gone through Pochettino, Jose Mourinho, Antonio Conte, you know, 3 fantastic managers in European football. It has to be now, because if this doesn't work, where on earth do you go from here?
You know what, for me, Chris, look, when Mourinho came in, the first thing that I had a massive rant with Anthony Costa, and I said he will be the only manager that doesn't win a trophy at Tottenham. And he's like, Rick, what are you talking about? Rick, trust me, it's Mourinho. And I'm like, all right, cool. And after lockdown, I gave him benefit of the doubt. My thoughts were he was going to destroy everything that Pochettino built. Okay, look, it went the way that it went. We've been Titanic FC for a minute. If you wanted a project manager, then you should have gone for Potter. You should have gone for Howe. You should have gone, you know, back to Pochettino. You could have gone for somebody who would kind of fit that policy of bringing in young ones, you know, developing them, hopefully getting a gem, and hopefully pushing on that way. You do not bring in Antonio Conte if that's what you want to happen, okay? They knew that he can be volatile. They know that he's emotional. They know that he wants the best. So you can't bring him in and then not back him. Like the gents have said there, you know, with Antonio Conte, that he's come in for Kane, for Son, for Hugo Lloris. Those players that have been there for ages, and we still haven't gone past that line, and we haven't lifted a trophy for those players and for us. So if you're going to bring in somebody like Conte, then you have to give him what he needs. We know that, you know, we've had some players that have been there since the Poch era, and there's been many a time that we've felt that they're not good enough. I'm so happy that everybody turned up at the end of last season. As soon as Conte turned up, and they started to put a run together. We had some bumpy rides before we had that run. Do you know what I mean? We had that Burnley game after Man City, and we had certain things happening around that time. But then Conte, the one thing that I love about him is that he does hold that board to account. He does hold that scouting system to account. And with all the comments that came after the Burnley game, it forced the board to go and act, and we brought in Bentancur and Kulusevski. Now, both of those was not 60, 80 or 100 million pound players, but they were the right players in the right positions where we needed them most in January and going forward. And they took us, if it wasn't for their impetus, you know, Bentancur in midfield and Kulu on the right-hand side there, just bringing some magic and some energy and some and goals and assists. You know, if it wasn't for that reinvigorated the side, I don't think we would have made the top 4. So take that as an example right now. Instead of spending money on players that the manager doesn't want, go out there and show him that he can be backed. Go out there and get him the ones that we want. Now, we know where we're weak. We said this in the summer. We said left centre back. We've said right wing back. And we've said creative midfielder stroke attacker. Okay? Yeah. We've said this. Every Spurs fan said it. On every show that you're on, Chris, everybody says the same thing. Now, we knew that in the summer. Now, right now, if we can get some deals done in those problem areas, we're going to be a totally different side. And not only that, Antonio Conte is going to have that feeling about him where it's like, oh no, I've needed this and they've brought this in. And that gives him faith and confidence in what the board are saying upstairs and what they're saying, you know, in private, but as well as in public, because they've gone out there and they've done it. You know, Antonio Conte is a man who doesn't like lies. He said it many a time, he doesn't like good lies, he doesn't like bad lies. Even when he's talking to the fans, he don't want to tell us good lies or bad lies. But if I take that example from last year, Burnley, maybe all of the things in the press conferences, and I said to you in the last show, Chris, you know, it's the first time that I've ever felt that it's a bit rocky with Conte. I thought that he was always going to be here, but the last couple of things, the press conferences that come out, I can see it happening again, and that feeling's around again where the excuses are going to come out. We need to sell to buy, we need to loan to buy, we need to do this, we need to do that, we need to do it the cheap way. Right now, get that money and take a risk. Take a risk on this world-class manager. Take a risk on the now. And that's why you brought him in, was because you wanted to rectify now. So he wants to build solid foundations. He wants to push this club forward. Give him what he needs. And there can be a compromise. It doesn't have to be a 30-year-old at 80 million. You can find gems at 25 years old. You can find the people in the positions that he needs for this squad to be stronger, for us to push forward. And we could have the same Bentancur Kulu effect if we go out there and get him to high quality. And it doesn't have to be stupid money. We've seen that. In fact, I saw a graphic on Twitter where they put out all of the highest spends on players, the highest transfer fee on players, and asked how many of these have been a success. And it's very few, bro. Out of 20, it was very few. It was like 3 to 5. And that's from across the club. That's not just Tottenham. That's across the league. Okay? So money doesn't solve everything. But if you go out there and get the right players, the right profile for the right price, at the right age, this side could go somewhere special. Do you know what I mean? And then at least Antonio Conte's got those tools that he can work with to create more miracles. You know, to get Davies playing out of his skin last year, I thought Davies was done. I thought Dyer was done last year before Conte came in. You know, there's a couple of players in that side where I was just like, oh, but he did rinse and repeat, and he got some more levels out of these players. Fantastic. But now give him what he needs. Give him what he needs, and if you give him that, then imagine how far he could push this side. Imagine how kind of excited the players would be that Antonio is excited that he's got the one that he needs in this position and in that position. Don't tell us about the summer. If there's an opportunity to go out there and do it right now, show us. You know, inspire us. Inspire that squad. Inspire Conte, and inspire every single Tottenham fan listening and watching, and that spend all of their spare time checking up on Tottenham news like I do. You know, inspire us all. Show us that things have changed. Because if you wanted that project manager, if you wanted somebody to do it with £15 million players, with young players of a certain profile and a certain wage bracket, and you wanted to grow them in, then we've got the wrong manager for that job. Do you know what I mean? Like, yes, he can do it, but it's not the way. It's not his way. Give him what he needs, plus, and we will flourish, and we will see a different side of Tottenham, and we can see a different side of this board if they were for the first time, like Carl was saying, and like Craig was saying there, for the first time ever, that when we need it the most and when we're about to push again and go to that next level, that this ball go, you know what, there you go. Go get who you need to get. I don't want to speak about the Gooners, but the Gooners and their Gooner board, and think about how toxic Gooner fans were for a long time, and inside the stadium, outside the stadium, but suddenly the Gooner board, they gave like Arteta, I think it's like 400 million in players and stuff over the time that he's been there. Okay. Do you know what I mean? Like, come on. You've got to you've got to risk something. You've got to put something out there. I know your fingers are burnt by Ndombele and Lo Celso and other players that you spent money on. But cut your losses. You know what I mean? Make a deal, get them gone, get some money in so that you can reinvest. Or go and do what you got to do. We can't just keep sending players out on loan and hoping that we're going to get the money that we paid for them. It's not going to happen right now, you know? So So come on, boys. You've got an opportunity. The board, everyone up there that loves Tottenham, that really does love Tottenham. And you can change the perception right here, right now. Or you can fall back into what every single Tottenham fan, like Craig was saying earlier, every single Tottenham fan knows. Do you know what I mean? That we'll get there, but we just won't push it. We just won't go past it. We just won't spend that extra 10, that extra 15, that extra 20 mil on that player that would make a difference. You know, so history, like Craig was saying, history has shown us a lot. It has shown us a lot. History speaks for itself. So they've got an opportunity to change their history, to change their perception, the board out there, by backing a world-class manager that knows what he's doing in his prime. You've switched the whole fan base to get behind this guy and to switch our philosophy of what type of football we like to see as well, to back this guy. It's time for you to back him too. And yes, you improved the squad in the summer. You improved the squad. But how many of those did improve? Did they improve their first 11? It's time to go and do that now. It's time to level up. It's time to upgrade. Do you know what I mean? And make the deals that you've got to make on the side. And whoever's got to leave has got to leave. You know, but do it. Make it happen.
I feel like there's so much more that we need to cover on this subject, but we don't have time for it. So we will revisit these points on a future show. I've got 3 questions left for you all, and we are now recording past midnight. So I will try and wrap this up fairly quickly. 2 very quick ones for you. How many players do you think we will sign in the January transfer window? Just give me a number. I'm going to go with 1. Craig?
2.
Cole?
3.
3?
I'm gonna go 2.
Okay.
I would love 3 though. I would love 3. But I'm gonna say 2.
Yeah, we would all love 3. I hope you're right, Cole. Will Antonio Conte be our manager at the start of next season? I'll answer this one last. Craig?
No.
Cole?
Everything I've heard, no.
This is the eternal optimist in me. I'm going to say yes.
I'm going to say he'll be here at the end of this season. Does that count?
Well,
with Conte and with this board, you just don't know. I think it all depends on January. So I would hope so, because to start a whole project again, to get players out which a new manager doesn't want, and to switch philosophies and to do all of to start again right now, I just don't want it. I'm tired. Do you know what I mean? Of regurgitating the same old. So I would hope that they back him right now, and as soon as this transfer window is done, he signs a new deal, Kane signs a new deal, and we're cooking for next year. So I'm going to stay optimistic and say yes if you really push me.
I'm going to agree with Craig. I don't think he's going to be. That's the way I feel at the moment. I'm hoping that things change, and I'm hoping that, as Cole said, we get 3 signings in. Wouldn't that be great? And we back him fully. That's what I really want. But I can't see it at the moment. Last question for you all. Of course, we've got Portsmouth next in the FA Cup on Saturday, 12:30 kickoff at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. Antonio Conte, in one of the embargoed press conferences, said basically that the League Cup and the FA Cup weren't really that important. It's all about the league and the Champions League. Craig, what did you make of those comments? What do you think about the game ahead against Portsmouth? Because they have just sacked their manager as well, by the way, and are in very bad form.
Yeah, disappointed to hear that. As I've said before, love the FA Cup, and I think the Carabao Cup. You take any cup at the moment, to be honest with you. I want us to win the FA Cup. Great history in the FA Cup. I hope he puts out a team good enough to get through Portsmouth, and then the next round's probably end of January, beginning of February. So hopefully by then, look, let's take one round at a time. If you're asking me for a score prediction, I'm going to go 4-0 Tottenham. I think we'll run away with it. It's a shame because Danny Cowlin, I think, is a good manager. He wouldn't remember me at all, but I used to play football with him for a few games for my old Sunday team. He wasn't a bad player, actually. Shame, because Dane Scarlett, he loved Dane Scarlett and he praised him all the time. So I hope Dane still kicks on whoever if I don't know if they've got another manager in or not yet. But shame to see him get the boot. But understandable for the results. They've been in free fall. But comfortable win though for Tottenham on Saturday.
Carl, what are you thinking ahead of this game on Saturday?
Yeah, exactly the same. Really, hopefully we'll rotate a few players. I mean, there's a temptation that you put Kane in there and he breaks the record, but I think he needs rest in his legs. I think after the World Cup and the emotional kind of things he's been through as well in the past sort of few months, I would want to wrap him up in cotton wool and just make sure we do enough. I want to see us win the FA Cup. I think we need to have a real go at the FA Cup and just put to bed this kind of trophy hoodoo that's just hanging over us. So yeah, I want us to win on Saturday and be the start of a good cup run.
It's crazy, isn't it? Last won the FA Cup in 1991. I know I say that stat a lot, but I cannot believe it. 1991, when we won it for a record 8th time. Rick, are you positive for Saturday's game?
Yeah, I am, mate. And it's the one trophy that I said we would lift at the end of the season. Do you know what I mean? That's so I do hope that they go out there and a comfortable win, and they rotate a few players as well. And they've got the contingency plan on the bench if 60, 70 minutes it ain't going the way that it should go. But yeah, mate, I see kind of like a 3-0 win, like Adrian was saying down there. I'm kind of on a 3-0 win, and I'm going to say Hill is going to get his first goal against Portsmouth on Saturday. That's what I'm going to say.
Yeah, I'm going to go for a 3-0 win as well. You guys have been an absolutely fantastic, all three of you, fantastic guests this evening. Thanks so much for joining me. Carl, you've got a new podcast coming out. Tell us all about it.
Yeah, I have. It's called When Football Began Again. It's a nostalgic look at the Premier League era. So basically starting off with 92-93 season and revisiting that. This is across all clubs, obviously not just Spurs. I've done interviews with Bryan Dean, who scored obviously the first Premier League goal, who was also my wife's teenage crush. So we had a chat about that. So that's coming in a few weeks. I once met Bryan Dean, actually had a picture taken with him, and just basically said that, this is what you could have ended up with, and this is what you did get. So that takes pride of place in our house. So it's called When Football Began Again. It's not quite out. It's been first episode's released a week on Monday, but if you search When Football Began Again on social media, you should find that, and it would be great if people had subscribed to that.
Carl, tell us about your book as well while you're on.
Being that number, I wrote a book about Spurs in the Champions League final season, all about Spurs supporters clubs all around the world. That's still available on Amazon. Had a decent month with that at Christmas. A few people opened that on Christmas morning, I think. So, it kind of tells the story of that season, the bittersweet ending of it through all of the amazing supporters clubs we've got around the world. It's just incredible. And I saw earlier that someone's in Japan at 4:30 in the morning watching this, So the dedication those fans show is unbelievable, and the book is kind of dedicated to them. So that's Being That Number. Search for that on Amazon. You'll find it on there.
Well, Carl, thanks so much for joining us again. It's been a pleasure having you back. And actually, I should say, whilst you said that about Japan, so many people listen to this podcast all around the world, and I put some stats up. We've been in so many charts over the last week, so I cannot thank all of you for listening all around the world. It's absolutely brilliant support, so thank you so much. Ricky, what are you up to at the moment? Where can people find you, apart from in Watford?
Yeah, I'm never going to be in Watford again. Don't you ever worry. Never. You say that. Watch my next job be in Watford. Back to the grind, auditioning, bro. Just sorting the house. Just getting back to normal. I've just finally got the house together and got everything sorted after Panto. So, yeah, back to the grind, my friend, and sorting bits and pieces out left, right, centre. But you know where you can find me on Twitter, at Ricky J. Norwood, which is down there. And then on Insta, official Ricky Norwood. You can find me there too. And yeah, I'm sure we'll have a couple of more shows coming up, my friend. And it's been a pleasure to be on with the 3 C's. Some people say the degrees, but these are the 3 C's tonight. Do you know what I mean? So it's been great to be on with all of you lads tonight. And it's great to finish on a positive, bro. A good 4-0 win. Let's go into this FA Cup. Let's go get it, man. Come on, you Spurs.
Fantastic. Well, thanks so much, Rick. And Craig, thanks so much for joining us again. Hope you enjoyed it. And where can people find you?
If they really want to follow me, I'm on Twitter at BM9. Don't post much, but it's usually about Tottenham when I do. And I'll tell you what, really enjoyed this show. I enjoy most shows come on. Obviously, enjoy the ones where we win more. And, you know, what's that, 1 hour 40, if my eyes, 1 hour 43, we've been going 1 hour 44. You know, incredible. I can't believe it's 20 past 12. And we've been talking, and you could pretty, you know, feel it's been one of those pods where I feel you could talk for another hour and you wouldn't, like, you know, it's been great. So, but thanks for everybody for listening around the world wherever you are, and people sticking with it, because it's absolutely phenomenal. It still amazes me that, you know, not that it's so popular, because I think everybody likes to. It's kind of cathartic, is that the right word? You know, when we lose, it's good for people to listen to, and I'm glad people enjoy it and that I'm a part of it. So yeah, it's really humbling, and it's great to be a part of. And come on, you Spurs!
Thank you, Craig. I should have mentioned, actually, Spurs remain 5th in the Premier League. We've now played 18, we've won 10, we've drawn 3, we've lost 5. We've got a goal difference of plus 12. We've got 33 points. And I don't know whether you guys noticed that I actually missed off who's top there in this on purpose. But
don't fit on the screen. Yeah.
What another huge week we've got coming up. Portsmouth in the FA Cup on Saturday, and then, of course, the North London derby, followed by a trip to the Etihad, the champions Manchester City. Let's hope that Spurs can continue this winning form, and Harry Kane can break that record very soon. Thanks so much to Craig, Ricky and Carl for all of their contributions tonight, and thanks so much for all of your points and questions sent in this evening, and thanks so much for all of your support, and I'll see you in the next one. Until then, come on, you Spurs.
Come on!